Imagine building a house out of polystyrene. I know what you're thinking, it's not going to last 2 minutes, but I'm here to show you a technique that's been around for a very long time that is going to prove you wrong. Polystyrene houses can actually be bomb-proof. So here we are on site. We're going to go and see how one of these houses that looks just like a traditional house is built out of polystyrene blocks. This one's using natural Stamford stone, so yeah, it looks really, really nice. They're just about to start pouring the concrete, so we're going to take a look and meet Steve, the guy from Nudura, who has kindly let me come to visit his site today. So as you can see, they've got the concrete pump in place. This load's going to be 8 metres going in. There's 3 8 loads and a part load coming today. So this lorry will go and then another one will come fairly shortly. They like to keep the pours quite consistent so that one doesn't dry too much before the other one's poured, which makes sense. And it's all hands on deck, so they've got a vibrator to vibrate the concrete, to get the air out of it. And they'll work their way around the whole structure, sort of 600mm, 500-600mm at a time, gradually building up the layers just so they don't put too much weight in one area and put a lot of strain on the polystyrene blocks. I was just talking to Steve, the guy who's organising the pour. He said, like it's the concrete lorry driver that they've got, the pump lorry. He's quite experienced in doing these sorts of pours, and they said that can make quite a bit of difference. Just someone who knows when to back off with the concrete and knows when to put it in, knows when to feed it in as and when required. And you'll see that there's one guy, directing the pump, and there's another guy just going behind him, vibrating the concrete, and they'll just, like I say, they'll work their way around each time. This load will probably get them about maybe about 1 metre, 1200 from floor level, and then, like I say, another load will come in shortly after that. So Steve came in to see my mentees a few weeks ago. He came in and did a demonstration of the product, and I've known Nudura for quite a few years. I saw him at a building exhibition years ago, and although there's quite a few ICF products out there, this one really stood out, and it's one that just works. And what I mean by that is it's been very, very well thought out to be built out actually out on site, whereas some of the other ones might work well in like a warehouse in a nice, clean, tidy environment. But this one's just been really well thought out how to work, and very easy for non-skilled labour to put together, although these guys do a training course for £100 for a day, which is well worth anybody going on. And yeah, it's just a really simple product. It just works. It's really well insulated. I'm all for reducing the emissions and the heating requirements that we need for our dwellings and reducing the bills. And if you build a good, well insulated house, you don't need a super duper expensive heating system. In fact, you don't really need any heat in a house like this. It's just self-contained, just your body heat, tumble dryers, cooking, sunlight coming in through the windows. That tends to be enough to even heat the house. The one thing I've noticed is that the concrete guy pouring the concrete, the one operating the pump, he's got it on a nice flow rate. So obviously when you're pouring foundations, you can put it in really, really quick. But like Steve said, you get the right guy, it can make a big difference. And this guy, he's got it on a nice steady rate, like I say, not to put too much concrete in. Because again, if he puts too much in, can the guy vibrate enough before he has to keep moving around? And they're just going to gradually keep working their way around the building. Sorry for interrupting this video, but look, many of you are not subscribers, and we really love your support to helping this channel grow. But more importantly, you're going to be missing out on information about how we bought sites like this for just £1 and made a £500,000 profit. So make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell. Really love to see you support the channel. Let's get back to the video. So I'm here with Eric and Liz. So these are a couple of mentees of mine, and Eric kindly organised the tour so we can come and see the concrete pump with Steve, who we'll speak to shortly. So what do you guys like about this? Because we saw this demonstration going on in the academy a few days ago. What sort of naturally brought you to want to come and see more about this product and learn more about it?
Well, I've come from a civil engineering background, so I'm used to sort of pouring concrete. Okay. And I love my timber frame, as you know, but of course this has got like a really high thermal mass. Yeah. So, when you get something built in this, it's going to be really solid, really warm, and as Steve said, really quiet. So if you're building in a built-up area, that's really attractive. And of course, it's just incredibly strong. We've got a site here, with a great big sort of change in levels, so
There's definitely some constraints we're building on this site at the moment, isn't it? With, like you say, the room and the ground levels.
That's it. So all the scaffolding is on the inside, so you've got nothing on the outside. But of course, it also makes your retaining wall, just in one hit.
Yes.
So a lot of advantages.
What do you think to the product, Liz?
I think it's great. I'm really interested in the different modern methods of construction.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, like a house like this is great to get started on as a development. Would you physically be building this yourself? And is that sort of what attracts you to it as well, in the fact that you don't need to go out and pay expensive skilled labour when, you know, you can go on a training course for £100 and Nudura show you the right way to do it? But you could see you physically self doing this.
Oh gosh,
together.
yes. You know, you can easily do that. Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. And I think, morning, you right? I think that's what attracts a lot of people to it.
Yes.
Because, like you say, skilled labour is so expensive and unreliable, hard to get hold of. Whereas something like this, you know, it's pretty easy to pick up. It's not technical. As long as you do it right, it's almost foolproof.
And manual to follow, and like you say, you get
manual to follow. I think also speed. The speed you could build it in as well is very quick. I think something typically like this is about a week to get everything in place. But like you say, once the pour's done, then they'll start doing the next lift, getting the joists on. So I don't think there's any extra time involved in doing something like this compared to traditional.
No.
I think costs are definitely better. And but then I think, like you say, then the overall benefits come from the end user.
Yes.
Compared to traditional build, which is traditional build is sort of built just to get inside the regulations. This over exceeds them.
Yes, by far.
And I think, like, if I was doing a self build, I would look at something like this all day long. You know, as a developer, you have to weigh up the difference between cost and. But again, if you can get something like this and get the plot right, I don't really think there's much difference in costs.
No, and certainly putting all the services on the inside, you know, you've got all those fixings for the plasterboard, chasing is nothing, you've got hot wire for all your,
hot wire in the plumbing, putting the plastic pipe in is like, I mean, it's just a dream, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, when I saw this product about 8 years ago, I didn't really see any downsides with it, you know, and which is unusual because a lot of these things come out and you think, oh, here we go. Yeah, here we go. You know, it sounds good in principle, but when in the real world, it doesn't work. But, you know, we stood next to a house next door, which looks just no different than traditional. They're building a traditional one next door as well, aren't they,
yes.
to that one? And it'd be interesting to see which one gets done first. But this one's going to be a lot more energy efficient, and, you know, it's not going to crack. It's not going to have any issues.
That's got a lovely wall of render on it, but of course that's never going to crack.
It's never going to crack. And that's the worst thing about rendering, isn't it? You build with traditional, once you get a crack, you can't patch it up. It doesn't hide, it never goes away.
Yeah.
Brickwork's a little bit forgiving.
Yes.
But, you know, like you say, with rendering, so when we're going to get started?
As soon as possible.
Are you going to get a bit hands-on? I see your hands-on putting on the tape on the top there. It's just one thing they just forgot. So Eric's already took over and... But, you know, you miss these things, don't you, as a developer? You're so busy.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, so busy.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think the good thing about this is, like, in the UK where the weather's not the best, you can still do this in the rain, whereas the guys next door to this one, if it does rain, they've got to go home and pack up and stone gets wet. Game over, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it is pretty independent of the weather.
Yeah. Right, we're going to watch a bit of this pour and then we'll come back to you shortly. So the first load's in, that's 8 cubic metres gone in now, and Steve's over there just checking, making sure that everything's okay with the bottom polystyrene blocks, because that's obviously where the most strain goes in, all the weight is at the bottom. And of course, as they load more concrete in there, that's only going to add to that strain, which is why all those bits of wood around there. And Steve was saying that what they do when they first start pouring the concrete, they just flush through a little bit out the pipe, like this stuff here, just to make sure that, you know, it's not really, really watery or wet or weak going into the bottom of the pour. So that's normally just disposed of somewhere. And then from then on, it's all good concrete coming out into the pour. One thing you'll notice with the way they build their houses here is that the scaffold is actually on the inside. So the scaffolding actually acts as a structural formwork while the concrete's being poured. And then that'll be removed, and then they'll put the joist on, then go up to the next floor. And obviously on the outside, then we'll put an independent scaffold up as the bricklayers come in and put the brick slips or render, depending on whatever covering they're going to choose to do. So all these bits of wood on the corners are just for support while the concrete goes off. And they're screwed in with the stainless steel screws that go right into the plastic in between the polystyrene blocks, so they're not going to pop off. They're very, very rigid. Once it's all done, the screws are took out and reused, and then these bits of wood are just, again, they're just took around with all the scaffolding that they normally deliver with the service they provide. So it all gets recycled, all gets reused from job to job, so there's no wastage. You can see this guy here just checking the supports once it's been poured, just to make sure there's no movement. And if there is, they can soon adjust it before they continue pouring. Everything seems to be going well. And you can just see right down here, the concrete has just started coming out, but literally nothing. That's as much as you'll get. So no concrete coming through. And from in here you can see the scaffolding that becomes the formwork. So you've got these big box sections that are screwed to the plastic ties, and they've got the angled supports that keep them all upright and up plumb. And then also they create a walkway all the way up the top, so safe working height. And like I say, once it's been poured today, this scaffold will come down tomorrow and they'll start doing the floor joists. And then it'll probably take about another day to do all the polystyrene blocks for the next lift. Then they'll put the scaffolding up there and support it again, and then they'll do another pour, which is where the roof will sit on. So really, really quick system. It goes up really quick. There you go. Like you can just see one of the guys just adjusting one of the props. They simply just twist them around, twist them in or out. You can see the guy up there just vibrating the concrete. So he's just gradually working his way around, getting all the air out of the concrete. And there's Steve, the main man. We'll talk to Steve very shortly. He basically comes out and oversees the project. He's like your one point of contact, deals with the sales, makes sure and comes and checks all the formwork is up properly, make sure everything's correct before the concrete comes and pours, just so that there's no disasters. And once he's happy with it, the button gets pushed and the concrete gets poured. All good. So Steve just giving the wall a bang so you can see where it is.
And then do the one above it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can see, can't you?
and you can feel the difference as well. And inside,
Yeah.
so we know how high it's going.
Right, okay.
Because it's got the waterproof mix, it's important we get it all the way around.
Okay, so yeah, got waterproof mix in the concrete. The good thing is about something like this, you know, Steve's here all day. Steve's going to keep an eye on the project, make sure everything's okay. And again, this is about as much as the concrete you get out. It's like literally, I mean, that's more water. Nearly empty, yeah. But will he check all the supports, like every pour?
Yeah,
Every pour, yeah,
just
yeah.
make sure they're still level.
I mean, he's only adjusted one, I think, so far. So
Usually just a
yeah,
tiny little adjustment.
one twist, yeah, that's been good.
It's a nice straight line.
Yeah,
It's important to do that before the concrete goes off, otherwise we'll never move it.
yeah, yeah.
As you can imagine.
Yeah. So that's the first load of concrete empty. That's 8 metres, took about 20 minutes to get in at the most. Everything's going fine so far. It's a bit cloudy, good old UK summer, but to be fair, you know, this doesn't matter whether it rains or not. It is very, very you know, weather proof. You can pretty much do this any weather. I mean, it's quite windy today, but I guess the only downside I could ever see this product is actually doing it in a windy environment. I did go to see one up in Carlisle a few years ago, and that was really windy, quite exposed, quite open. And you just have to put some stuff on the materials when they're sort of stacked up, because you can see like the polystyrene's here. Of course, there's no weight to it, and it acts like a sail. So, you know, you just got to protect yourself from the wind. But apart from that, you can do this in the rain. You can do it in the snow. You can obviously do it in the baking hot heat. It doesn't matter. All you got to take into account is the concrete. You know, pouring it in, making sure everything's fine, and it doesn't set too quick, or the frost doesn't get it as well. So. With the concrete going off inside the polystyrene, basically concrete generates heat, and what you'll find then is that the concrete almost like insulates itself and just cures at a great pace. You know, it doesn't, like I say, it doesn't dry out too quick. The wind doesn't dry it, and it cracks like you sometimes see on oversights, or like when you're laying floor slabs. So it just gets a nice environment where it can cure at its own pace. So this guy's just going to wash out his lorry. This is probably the downside of doing some of these small sites, in the fact that, you know, it's very, very tight. You haven't got a lot of room. You can't just wash out on the floor like you normally would. So they put some polythene down, so they consider it. And then of course the lorry's got a hose pipe on there so you can wash out. So one of the things I like on this site is, you know, when you're doing like small single units, and of course as you know, we've started to find plots a bit more harder to find in between built up areas. This system seems to work really well on the basis of it's like a really tight site. So they've got some stone delivered here, which has just been high-abbed over the wall. But like, you know, all the blocks required to have done all this formwork would have been loads. You know, there's not much room for a forklift. There's not much room for the vehicles to park. So the good thing is all these polystyrene blocks can be dropped off and stacked neatly, and then literally put into place very, very quickly. So I'm here with Steve from Nudura. He's kind enough to come down to have a look at one of his projects I've just been for today. Really interesting. Thanks for coming into the Academy and letting us see a site. I was telling you that I saw the product about 8 years ago at a show, and to me it just worked. And you've gone into depth by explaining a lot more, but I've got a lot of people that are interested in this product, and I feel like it's just a lack of information. So
I think there's the trouble is there's a lot of bad information out there. You know, it's, there is certainly a lack. You don't see this on every street.
No.
Unlike traditional builder timber frame, 25 years ago you didn't really see a lot of timber frame, but it's come through that sort of
well,
process
brick and block
that we're going
really
through.
is dying because it's so expensive. It's so slow.
Very much so.
It's the quality of work is not as good.
Yes.
So, like you say,
lack of trades and you don't
as
get so
time
many
goes
kids
on.
going through, do you?
No, you don't, unfortunately, which is a shame. Which you know makes room for products like this, because we need to look at alternatives if something is dying out. And I was just talking to Eric and Liz, and I said, like, you know, is this something you would physically put together yourself? And they went, oh yeah, all day long. You know, and Eric's getting involved in there. He's just helping the guy doing the.
That's
but he lives. He's in his element. Yeah,
he's loving it. Well, he's got a civil engineering background.
He has.
He understands the process. It's shuttering concrete in a different way.
Just shuttering concrete.
The good thing is we don't need a crane. We don't need to strike the pans afterwards. It stays in place and gives you a fantastically insulated property, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Commercial or residential, whatever.
So tell us a little bit more about the product. You know, where is it made? Where it comes from?
Over 30 years.
30 years
in Canada. Started basically as a quick shuttering method after the Second World War, but a different style entirely. Ended up being a polystyrene EPS or XPS product. And then it's gradually evolved. This is about third or fourth generation Nudura.
Yeah.
So they've improved it as it goes.
And I suppose it's also improved with pressure from building regs.
Oh, very much so.
That
Building
side of
regs
things.
change constantly.
Yes.
Particularly in the UK.
Well, it's generates income, doesn't it, and keeps people in work. And because like we talked about this earlier off camera, how it's got to a point now where it's almost like there is no benefit for over-engineering this stuff now, making it thicker and warmer, and
absolutely,
you know, because they've been using it in Canada for years.
Yeah, exactly.
And
the Canadians use this. This is basically in old money 2.5 inches of EPS, 67 mil.
Yep. So do you want to show just show the viewers how that? So this comes flat packed in these packs.
This is a corner unit with a snail living in it.
I'll just turn the camera around, then we can see it a bit better.
So this is actually a corner unit. So
yep.
This is the only one that needs to be assembled. So that goes in these receptacles here.
So literally concertina's out, and then you put one in the corners.
Yeah. So basically, you mean you're not transporting loads of air.
Yeah.
This flat packs. The straight blocks are the same. A straight block is nearly 2.5 meters long.
I think you were saying this was 26 blocks equivalent?
22 blocks.
22 blocks.
11
So
on each panel.
for all the bricklayers here on price work, if you can lay 22 blocks
Especially
in
the
one
ones
go.
with bad backs.
Yeah, well, we've all got bad backs. You get that about 19 years old when you finish your apprenticeship.
You do, don't you?
Yeah. And
so it's a quick and easy way of putting it down. We can put one of these down in a couple of seconds.
right.
The benefits would be designing the property to the size of the blocks. You'll see on here there's a lot of strapping because basically we've had to make the blocks fit the plans.
Yeah.
So there's a
But
lot
you
of
can do
cutting
it to
do.
suit anything, can't you? Any
You can do it
plans.
to suit anything you want. Yeah, we do curves or zigzags or
Bricklayers can do curves. We do curves, bricklaying.
Yeah, I'm on about deliberately.
Yeah. And I mean, like you say, it's a Canadian product, but you're UK based.
UK based.
UK support, UK training.
Nearly 20 years as Nudura. I've been doing Nudura for 10 years. I've been doing ICF for nearly 20 years. So.
And no supply issues whatsoever.
No supply issues whatsoever. We've got the UK base, manufacturing base opening in 2025. Machinery's already going in.
Yeah.
So it's going to really revolutionise the market. At the moment, these are imperial.
Right.
Even though Canada is metric, their biggest neighbour and biggest client isn't.
Right. Okay.
So everything's made imperial. But the factory will be totally metric. We'll be able to supply the whole of Europe very, very quickly with the whole product range that we do now, which is immense.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I've noticed here is that this has just been manually handled up here, whereas if it's brick and blocks, you've either got to get a crane, forklift.
No craneage required.
You wouldn't get a forklift up here anyway because of the steep hill.
Yes.
And like you say, it can be moved about pretty easy. It doesn't take up a lot of room.
That's absolutely
for the volume.
True. And going back to the labour side of it, a good labourer can put this together.
Yeah.
The thing we can't teach is common sense.
You can't teach that in bricklaying either, so
you can.
doesn't matter what trade it is.
But that's all you need to put this together, basically. Common sense and being able to follow plans.
Yeah.
Now,
I suppose it's almost on a DIY level, isn't it?
Very
Like I say,
much so.
anybody can use a spirit level and a drill.
Very much so, yes.
And like I say, a little bit of common sense. So basic DIY level is all you need. I mean, you do in-house training, don't you?
We do in-house training, then we do site support as well.
Yeah, which is what I like about this product because, like I say, lack of information, lack of knowledge stops people then going to the next step. But having someone like you come down and see the project before it pours just to make sure everything's okay is good. And then you're here on the day of the pours.
Always, yes.
Just in case there is any issues, which, like you say, you prevent it in the first visit.
Yeah,
just manage it on the second.
With all the best will in the world, if something happens because somebody might have, for instance, let me give you an example. The shape of that, as it is, makes it look like a very attractive chair to have your lunch on.
Yes, it does.
So if somebody sits on there and they put a hairline crack in here, we won't see that on a pre-poured chair.
Yeah.
However, the concrete will probably find that when it goes in the wall. So part of our training is don't sit on them.
Yeah. I mean, you've actually braced every single corner anyway, haven't you? It's almost like you would prevent it if
the
it
reason
was
for that mainly is because it's what I mentioned earlier. Sorry, what I mentioned to you earlier was it's a transition corner. So it goes actually from a wide concrete core into a narrower one.
Yes.
So a lot of strapping's been done just to prevent any movement of that.
And that strapping is minutes to install, isn't it? So it's not like an expensive job to do or a big job.
Most of it's come from old pallets, like we've got on site here. So they just cut the pallets down. So it's all reusable as well. They've got another level to go plus gables, so they'll reuse all this anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
And at the end of it, they'll probably have a nice bonfire or use it again on another project. You can see the concrete started to flow under the opening.
Yeah.
When it's come to this level, so 50 mil from the top, we'll make sure it's vibrated properly.
Okay.
Then this insulated closure will go in.
Right. Okay. So you're going to top these up with a pump on the next load?
We're going to top it up with a pump, make sure it's vibrated so there's get all the air out, make sure it's compacted properly.
Yeah.
Close it off so that we've got a totally insulated surround.
Yeah.
In here, you can see we've got insulation as well.
That's already in there, yeah.
That's
These
already
obviously you're holding ties that height all together.
It means you've got no cold bridging anywhere. It's totally encapsulated and insulated properly. One of the biggest heat losses, or one of the biggest pitfalls on your sap carts is your cold bridging.
Yes.
You don't get any.
Which, again, building regs are getting very hot on, like I say, air tightness, thermal bridging.
Very much so. Very much so.
Which, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
But again, with the way brick and block are built, a lot of those corners can get cut, through speed of price work and.
Well, if you were a bricklayer for a long time, if you get any damping in that cavity where the insulation is, it's going to shrink.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you're going to create mould. There is no cavity for that to occur.
Yes. Yeah.
So the air tightness on this is fantastic as well.
Yeah.
The target rate for a SAP assessor is 3 air changes.
Right.
If I had more than 3 air changes, I'd know those windows and doors have been fitted wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's nothing going to happen
No.
with these woods. There's nowhere for drafts to get in or heat to escape.
Right, let's go and have a look inside.
So a property system. So we're going to get some concrete in here as well when it comes on. Oh, hang on. That might already be full actually.
Yeah.
So the bracing system.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, talk about bracing system. So you hire these out, don't you?
We do, yeah.
And it's not very expensive, it was like
It's a pound per prop.
£1 per prop, so I mean it's peanuts, isn't it?
It is.
Some people try and do it out of wood, but to be fair, it's not even worth it.
You can't adjust to it. That's the
You can't
problem.
adjust them either, yeah.
This is fully adjustable to a string. So this is hired out for the duration of the project.
What sort of time would it take
Well, this has
a
taken
couple of
just
guys?
over a week.
Just over a week to get to this point.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
It is, and they've had a lot of fiddly corners to
Yeah,
do
yeah.
as well. It's not.
Yeah, it's not a rectangle
straightforward.
box, is it?
A rectangle box would take a few days.
Yeah.
But so I think 3 men have built this in just over a week. So it's their second project, so they're
Right.
getting more used to it, if you like.
Yeah, yeah.
The more you do, the quicker you get, the better you sort of. Every training course will teach you the way to do it.
Yeah.
When you've built a few, you throw your training manual away.
Yeah.
Have you found your own way?
Yes.
Without cutting corners.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get used to working with the product, like you say, finding out, how it works with you and how the guys work together. They get into a system, and like say, on the next one, they'll get quicker, and
Yeah, they'll know
eventually.
what to do. They won't need us sort of support as much.
No.
We support on every project until they tell us they don't need it anymore.
Right.
And I've got regular builders that have been using this for years. We still turn up and surprise them, if you like, make sure they haven't fallen in any bad habits.
Yeah. And are these guys like just contractors for the person, the developer?
This is actually it's his own plot, so
His
it's
own
a
plot.
self-builder. This
Right,
is his
okay.
own house.
Yeah.
He built next door for his brother.
Right.
The top plot was for another relative, but he wanted to go traditionally.
Yeah, I see that, yeah.
He's a bricklayer,
Yeah.
so it made sense. But yeah, so this is their second project, and he's making sure that everything goes perfectly. He's got to live here. He's got to.
Yes.
His wife's got to live here.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, self-builders, they do like to do things properly.
They do,
and,
very much,
They
yeah.
don't want to build a house that's going to be expensive to run once it's been built, because when you get to retirement, you're obviously going to make do on less money.
Very, yeah.
So
And I
building an
think-
efficient house is the key,
And the tuition that you provide, I think, will steer people in the right direction to make sure they don't do these shortcuts
Yeah.
and fall into these traps.
I mean, Eric and Liz, who are here today with us, I teach people how to do, become their own developer and go
Yes.
through the whole development process. And a lot of people that come through that training, what gets them in there is looking at these alternative methods of construction. So, and a lot of those do want to build their own house. That's their dream, to one, do it to obviously make the money and sell it, but also to build their own house. And that's why they're looking at things like this, because it makes sense. They get it.
Definitely.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you've been doing things 30 years, it's very hard to change what you're doing, isn't it?
And I think, you want it to go right, because it's probably going to be the biggest spend they ever make on anything in their life.
Yeah.
And so it's got to be money well spent, hasn't it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of different products out there that you can build with, but, to do DIY and actually put the walls up yourself, if you're not a carpenter or a bricklayer, then ICF is the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of self-builders, they will overspend on their budget pretty quick. But we was talking about the cost compared to this to traditional, and on that academy session, there was Henry there with his timber frame.
There was Henry,
and John
yes.
was talking about the
Yes.
project that you priced up
He
for
was,
him.
yeah.
And to be honest, it was about the same like for like, but we think the savings will be on the heating systems that you have to put in, because if you've got to put
Very much so.
air
yes.
source heat pump or something,
Yes.
15 grand a pop,
Yeah.
it's quite expensive, whereas this, very, very little heating system, if any.
I've had clients that just use domestic appliances to heat their house, which sounds astonishing or totally wrong, but towel rails, TVs, kettles, body heat provides a lot of heat.
Yeah,
And
but
just
you would
have a
need something
backup
just
system.
purely for regs, wouldn't you, I'd
You
imagine,
would
rather
have
than
to tick a
actually
box,
using
and
it.
that's
Yeah.
what we're doing all the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
I had another client that had a wood burner as a backup,
Right.
and it was aesthetically pleasing when friends came round, put the wood burner on, it looks nice. Before long, they're turning it off again
Yeah.
because it's too hot.
Yeah.
So
Well, because it doesn't escape, does it? Like I say, with the
there's nowhere for
airtightness.
it to go. That's right.
I mean, one question that's just come to mind, which people will be asking, is what if you get a fire? And then I always say to them, look, every house has a 1 hour fire. Doesn't matter if it's timber frame,
Yep.
brick or block, or even this. worst case, the polystyrene's going to melt.
It's going to melt. Most
And
things will melt.
You could insulate it and plasterboard it again, and but the concrete's never going to go anywhere.
Concrete will not burn, and your first line of defence is your plasterboard, which you have to have for
Exactly.
building.
You have to have
regs
for
anyway.
any building. Exactly.
So there's your fire protection to start with. Generally, these ICF systems will have a 4-hour fire rating because there's an additive put in the bead that makes the polystyrene blocks,
Yeah.
which is a non-polymeric fire retardant.
Right.
So yes, it will melt.
So this is not your average polystyrene like you see in your packaging.
No, it's not the same as you'd have around the bottom of your washing machine or your burger.
Because it's very dense.
It's a very dense.
It's very compact, isn't it? It's very solid. Yeah.
When you bang it,
It's actually.
And of course, when it's got concrete in it, it feels entirely different.
Yeah, I saw you going around
When
banging it, and yeah.
It hardens. It's
Yeah.
almost like tomorrow, for instance, the walls will feel more like hardboard than polystyrene.
Right.
It's a much harder surface.
Okay. You know, and the other thing on the site, I mean, there's not really many materials here, is there? It's like
Very few tools either.
space to move around, and like I say, with the scaffolding not being up at the
A
moment.
saw and a drill is generally all that's needed, unless they're putting in some steel
Bit of
rebar,
rebar, yeah.
which they may need some cutting tools.
But that's
to do
enough
that.
rebar for the whole house.
For the whole house, yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can see that it's not a lot.
It's usually only lintels. Because in
Yeah.
this instance there's retaining walls at the rear and sides,
Yeah.
there is some 16mm bars in there as well.
Okay.
They're also using polypropylene fibres in the concrete, which provides crack control.
Okay.
So that does replace a lot of the horizontal steel.
But you know, once it's built, you're going to hear no noise from outside.
Oh, this is on a main road. It's a rat run.
Yes.
So the outside traffic, outside noises are minimum, but also inside, with the windows closed, if they're partying, then
Yeah.
invite the neighbours, don't
Yeah, and us.
you? Yeah, no, of
Yeah.
course.
So yeah, we're just waiting for another concrete lorry to come.
Yeah. So we have a little gap between loads. It just gives them time to take the vibrating poke around,
Yeah.
adjust the propping system, make sure the walls haven't started to move anywhere.
Yeah.
To,
Because like I say, if you have 3 or 4 lorries here at once, it can probably get a little bit stressful.
it
And
gets stressful.
then
yeah,
your
it gets-
lorry drivers are on waiting time. So like you say,
Exactly.
and will that lorry be on turnaround? To the
I think he probably
plan?
will. He's only Northampton. It's only
Okay.
5 miles away, so
Right.
he'll probably be back within the hour anyway.
But then, like you say, you know, what was that, 20 minutes for the pour? It wasn't long, was
If
it really?
that, yeah,
if that.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
like you say, you got one guy checking the props, one guy pouring the concrete, one guy on the
On the
vibrator,
vibrator, yeah.
and that's it. You know,
Yeah.
3 guys, like you say, a
And
small
I'm telling
team.
them how high the concrete's going in the walls and to move on,
Yeah.
because it was important to get the waterproof mix all the way round.
Hmm.
Now, I think actually talking to the client, it's all waterproof mixes today.
Right.
We
Okay.
wanted to make sure, because it's going to be back
It's self build as well. You
It's
know,
a
like you say,
self-build,
belt
we
and
didn't want
braces.
them-
Yeah.
Now, there is a water bar in the construction joint as well. I don't know if you saw that earlier.
I didn't see it, but I remember you telling us about them. Yeah. So
that's your first line of defence, which is your weak spot,
Yes.
is where the foundation course is.
yeah.
So that's stopping anything from coming through from outside.
But you know, standing up on this ground floor where we are, like I say, one of these walls behind us is almost going to be backfilled up to joist level.
Oh, it will be, yes.
And if that was to be built out of traditional construction, you know, you're probably talking like 3 skins of block work, or they'd have to put concrete reinforcing in there anyway. So then you've got to get all the expensive formwork in.
Absolutely.
So this would just be
And then
natural
take it
choice.
all away.
And then take it all away.
Yeah.
And like you say, whereas this, it's just done once,
Just
very,
done
very
once.
quickly.
Yeah, and you haven't got to add insulation. It's already there.
I mean, the polystyrene blocks here really is a day's work, isn't it, for the 3 guys? And
It
then
is,
it's more
it
just
is.
putting in the bracing and the
It's
formwork,
the fiddly bit that takes the
checking everything's plumb.
Yeah.
But the actual blocks, you
Forming the
know,
openings. If this was a box with no openings, I mean,
Yeah.
you're looking at a couple of days.
yeah.
So, yeah, very, very...
All right, I'll have a quick look up on the scaffold and just check on the pour. £1,000 of concrete doesn't look like it's gone very far, does it? But like you say,
does it?
3+ loads.
And the water's starting to come to the top now after they've vibrated
Yeah.
it. So it's compacted and well vibrated as well.
So you can see here where the polystyrene's tucked up at the top, out the way on the mud, before they level back to the retaining wall. So like I say, we're here at joist level, but that's almost ground level there, isn't it?
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
external ground level.
Yeah. And then you've just put this tape on top just to stop the concrete
Yeah,
sticking
exactly,
to that
yeah,
when you
because
put the
we're
next
gonna
layer
go
of
up
blocks on.
again.
Yeah.
And for, £5 worth of parcel tape,
Yes.
it takes probably a couple of days to get the concrete back out of the nibs.
Yeah. You're talking about the joist hangers.
Yes.
Do they fit so they go through into the
I'll
actual
show you.
form?
They're
Oh, you got
over
some, have you? Yeah. So here's the joist hangers. Just literally put your datum on there, slot them through, and then you can see, there you go, that'll just be concreted in there, bomb-proof, with some adjustment still. So tomorrow they'll take away all this props, I would imagine.
They usually take it down the day after,
Day
or
after.
the day after that.
Yeah.
Being a Thursday, they might leave it up until the weekend.
And then what do your guys come and collect this?
Come and collect
Just
it,
collect
yeah.
it on a lorry, yeah.
Then they'll put the joists in, they'll install the floor.
Yeah.
It's actually going to have a ledger plate over here.
Right.
Daftly. He thought he had a load of these here.
Yeah, I think I remember you
And
saying.
he didn't, yeah. So.
And what are these ones putting it on here for?
Right. This is a corner block joining a straight block.
Yeah.
So that joins one to the next.
Okay.
And it just keeps it nice and tightly
Yeah.
together. Don't have to use them. We think they're a good thing though.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you get these little gaps appearing, when they poker it, the water will start to come through, and it's
Right,
you know,
okay.
you've got to clean it all off.
Yeah, yeah.
For the cost of them,
Yeah.
they work really, really well. They fit very tightly. And these are obviously designed to hold the rebar where necessary.
Do you put them on every course or just at the top?
We put these on every course on the first course,
Yeah.
and then going up just on the corner to the next
Right, okay.
straight block.
And then you've got the rails, like we call them, like railway tracks.
Yes.
For reinforcing. How often do they go in? Because
They go in twice, so they go down either on the first or second course at the bottom,
Yeah.
and then either on the top or the second course down. And basically, it's what we call a formlock.
Okay.
So it's a 3 metre length of, it looks like a ladder. The rungs of the ladder, if you like, line up with these to give a nice passage for the concrete to fall.
Yeah.
And it's a wall straightener.
Okay.
So, as well as this, you've also got that, which brings everything to a nice string line.
Yeah. And then this is the side with a big rebar because it's going to be the retaining
This
wall.
is retaining, yeah, you can
Just
see
concrete
some,
from the foundation right the way up.
yeah, there's some 16mm
A little bit of wire just
rebar in
attached
there.
to the clips.
It's just tied into place. And there's no horizontal here at all because they're using the polypropylene fibres.
Yeah. Well, thanks for Steve for showing us around
No, it's a pleasure.
in
Thanks for
Nudura.
coming over.
And if anybody's interested in the product, how can they get in touch with you? How can they go to one of your training days as well?
Come on one of the training days, monthly training days. It's a one-day course. It's £100 plus VAT.
Yeah, so I mean, it's peanuts, isn't it? You know?
It's for the cost. That includes your site visits, your concrete
Right.
supervision. That's all included in
Wow.
the price. Lunch and breakfast as well. So
And you're normally on the home exhibition shows as well.
we're doing the home building show. I think it's the 23rd, 24th, 25th of September at Excel Centre in London.
Will you be there yourself?
I'll be there
You'll be there yourself?
personally.
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
Okay. Great.
Another weekend gone.
Another weekend gone. But like,
Yeah,
you know,
obviously. Anybody come along and have a chat. Be a pleasure to see you.
but you know, like John, Eric, and Liz, and like myself, you're passionate about this product.
Very,
you know,
very.
which is what it takes.
Every day.
Yeah, because it comes down to education of showing people this
Yeah,
stuff.
and even with us, I mean, every day's a school day. I'll see a builder that's doing something, and I'll go, "What are you doing?" And he'll tell me, I'll go, "What a good idea."
Yeah, yeah. Everyone's got their own little unique ways of doing stuff,
They
haven't
have.
they?
It
So
goes back to what I was
no
saying
one
about
knows
you
it
can
all.
throw the manual away.
No one knows it all.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, go check Nudura out, and we'll see you in a bit.